From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
So you might ask yourself why numbers are important in the life of a man of letters, but I'd like to share with you some of the numbers that struck me when I was thinking about Ernest Gaines. The fifth generation, born on a Louisiana plantation, the oldest of 12 children, wrote his first book at 17 while babysitting one of those other 12 children. 4 of his works made into movies. What are they? What are they? That's it. Autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. What else? The Gathering of, yeah, there it is. Winner of most of this country's highest literary honors. Yeah. See, I don't want you to think that applause was for me because I'm about to introduce myself. I'm Michelle Martin, weekend host of All Things Considered with NPR News. Thank you. And I am delighted and so honored to be in conversation with Ernest Gaines during the 2017 Library of Congress National Book Festival. He is here on the occasion of the publication of his latest book, The Tragedy of Brady Sims, his first in 2 decades. Thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you all for being here, and as I said, braving the rain. I was asked to, for just a couple of housekeeping issues, could you please silence your phones? We are, as you can see, live streaming this, and so if you could please silence your phones. We are going to talk up here for a bit, but we will definitely take your questions. I will try to give you enough notice so it's not a fitness contest. I was asked to let you know that if you do ask a question, you will be part of our broadcast here, so if you are shy or if you wanted to put your invisible suit on, you're out of luck, sorry. And with all that being said, welcome once again, Ernest Gaines. We love you so much.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, you know, I have to ask, with all this rain, and I promise you we didn't arrange it just so you'd feel more welcome, but how is your house? How are things in your hometown with all this weather doings? Is everything okay?
Well, rain, you know.
Yeah.
We have rain just like you have it.
Yeah, but everything's okay.
Everything's okay, yes. We were not flooded out at all.
Well, that's a blessing. We're really glad. I'm glad you made it. I was worried that you might not be able to. You know, you said you were done. In an interview that I found with the New York Times in 2010, you said you had nothing original left to say. Do you remember saying that?
No, I don't.
You don't remember saying that?
Okay.
What made you decide that you did have more to say?
Well, I don't know. One day I woke up and thought about writing something, and started writing the Tragedy of Brady Sims, which was originally titled The Man Who Whipped Children, and thought about why this man whipped children. There were about 3 men on this plantation where I grew up, and they all sort of looked after the children, whipped the children, and that was to keep the children out of jail, or keep the children out of from the trouble with the law, the sheriff, and especially keep the children from ever going to Angola, so they knew any other way to control the children. You know what had happened? This would be first part of well, during the war, when the military took the young men into service, and most of the other people. At that same time, you had the tractors taking over the work that men had done with their, mule and plow. And so many of the people were sort of pushed off the land because they had no work there. And the children were left with the old people until the people got established someplace in the town or up in the north or back east or wherever, west. My people went to the West Coast, and I went to California at a very early age. At age 15, I went to California to study, to educate. And many of the, as I said, the younger children were left with the old people. And some of the old people could not control the children. And so they got somebody to help them. And it was that man who whipped children. And I put all of these three men I knew who did this on this plantation. I made them all into this one man, Brady Sims. So he is the man who whipped children.
And when you say whipped, you don't mean a stern talking to. You don't mean.
No.
Don't do that again.
No, I mean a switch. And at the time you had to break your own switch, and go out and break it. And you come back and he'll, give you a punishment. And so that's.
The book starts with something quite shocking. Do you want to tell it, or do you want me to tell it?
Well, I thought you.
No, I'm going to read you up to it. I'll take you up there.
Oh, you're going to take me up there?
The book starts in the courtroom where a young man who's just been sentenced for a terrible crime has just been shot. An elderly man stands up in the courtroom and shoots him. And then the sheriff, for whatever reason, he says, you know what, I need 2 hours. Tell him to come get me in 2 hours. And they let him go for 2 hours. And it turns out that the man has shot his own son.
Yeah, right. Yes, I could have read that on.
Okay. So, it's actually. Do you want to read now? Do you want to read a little bit now? Here you go. All right. He said, because you're messing it up. You're messing it up. You're not doing it the way I. There you go. Here you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you want to read from the beginning?
Okay,
well, that was the part I had.
No, that's the beginning. And that's where it
okay.
starts. Chapter 1.
Okay, we don't want to do the whole chapter now.
It was over. We all got up to leave. 2 deputies had the prisoner by the arms. I was sitting in the back of the courthouse because I had been on another assignment and I had gotten there late. I was near the aisle when I heard someone call out loud and clear, "Boy." I looked back over my shoulder and saw that the 2 deputies had stopped with their prisoner and were facing old Brady Sims. Next came the loudest sound that I had ever heard. I saw the prisoner fall back with blood splashing from his body, and both deputies let go of his arms at the same time. Brady Sims stood there in that old faded blue jumper with the smoke still rising from the gun in his hand. Then came the screaming and the scrambling to get out of the place or get down on the floor. The members of the jury who didn't run out of the room got down behind their chairs. The judge went under his desk. The two deputies stood frozen with their hands near their guns, but not on the guns. Brady, facing them, his head as white as cotton is in September, stood as straight and tall as a picket in a fence. I watched him. I watched them all, afraid to run, afraid to get down on the floor. Tell Mapes, give me 2 hours, Brady said. Now, you don't think you're walking out of here, do you? Claude said. He was the younger of the two deputies. Brady got his hat off the chair next to the one where he had been sitting. He adjusted it well on that pile of cotton. I didn't come here for no foolishness, boy, he said. Tell Mapes what I said, he said to Russell, the older deputy. Go on, Russell said. Go on like hell, go on, Claude said. Then I heard that deafening sound again, and the smoke rising up between the old man and the two deputies.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you. You know, this is obviously a very particular place and a not quite clear when, but it's very current in some ways because it's very much about, well, it's about a lot of things. It's about, there's a whole question of the way law enforcement treats young black men, which is very much on people's minds right now. And increasingly, if you saw the video yesterday of that incident in Salt Lake City, it's also the way law enforcement treats everybody. No disrespect to law enforcement here, we appreciate you, but that's very much on people's minds. But it's also about how black people treat each other. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, if I could read it. You see,
here, I'm going to ask you to read the part. Can you read my part? Read my part.
I'll read your part.
Read the part I like.
Okay, good.
We're sharing.
See,
we're not really directing. I'm just sharing. This part is what I like. Okay.
Jameson went on. One Sunday after church, Tyree told the people not to leave yet. He had been getting complaints that children, the old people, couldn't control. The mamas and papas had gone to war or up north for work, leaving the children with their old people. Now the children stayed in trouble, always going to jail, some going to Angola. They brought up Boboy. For an example, what happened when they went to Angola? And they didn't want to see that happen to their children. They wanted Tyree to tell them what to do. Tyree told them that if they couldn't control the children, get somebody on the place who could. But who? Then they came up with Brady Sims. Brady could stop them. None of the Brady's kids ever got into trouble. Brady was the man to do the job. They went to Brady. Brady said if that's what they wanted, he would do it. They said that's what they wanted. And they warned their children, keep it up, just keep it up. You'll meet with Mr. Mr. Brady's whip. Jameson looked back at Lucas Felix. You still with me, Lucas? You might have quiet back there in that chair. I'm with you all the way, man. Lucas Felix said, you're telling it to a T.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Beautiful. Did any of you all meet a Brady Sims when you were growing up? Did any of you all meet a Brady Sims, a whipper? Or were any of you all hit as kids? I'm not the only one here. Am I the only one telling the truth up in here?
Well, we had this in schools at that time. You know, the teacher had the authority to whip the children, and they did it. If the children didn't know their lesson or did something wrong in class, or made noise or did something, the teachers controlled them at that time. I'm talking about the 40s, the 50s, you know.
Did you ever get?
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah, sure.
Get a switch?
Yeah, fighting, and the teacher would whip you, and or they would have make you open your hand out to them, and they would have you with a rule, and pop in both hands like this, you know. So we went through all of that.
You have a deep sympathy, it seems to me, for everybody involved in this situation. I mean, you have sympathy for the kids, but you also have sympathy for the ones doing the whipping, it seems to me.
Well, I'm God, you know, with my people, and no matter what you are, I have sympathy for you. God loves all of us, whether we were criminals or saints down here. So I have love for all my characters, whatever I create. You know, if he's a mean guy, and Brady Sims can be awful mean. You know, of course I have sympathy for Brady, just I have sympathy for the other adults, everybody. Sure, I love my people. I love my characters.
One time an interviewer said to you, there's a high price attached to bravery, and you said, I like pride in people. I try to show the strength of Black people. But it also seems to me in this work, you are showing the price of that strength. Does that seem right?
The price of that strength in
the
what
price
way?
Of what sometimes it takes for people to be who they are, that there's a price attached to that. So.
Well, yeah, I look at my characters, anyone who, when you say brave, it go beyond a certain point, line are drawn for you by your own people as well as what the law out there. And you cross that line, you get punished. You get punished. You used to get punished when you question the old people about why do I have to do this. And of course you get punished by the the white law out there as well, when you did something really punished. And that's why the people try to do anything to keep the people from going to Angola.
Angola being the prison there, a lot of you have heard of
It's the
Angola.
number one. Angola during the 40s, the 40s, the 50s, 30s, was the worst prison in this country, state prison in this country. That's the state prison of Louisiana, Angola.
I don't know if any of you grew up with this notion, I'm beating you because I don't want them to kill you. Did any of you grow up with that, hearing, I'm going to beat you because I don't want that one out there, the police, the law, the white society, to kill you? And I think that's, do you think that's still with us? Do you think that attitude is still here?
I think so, to a certain degree, yes. I don't think anybody's going to, kill some. Well, I don't know. But I think they will do anything to keep the children from, going to prison. Somebody got to stop them. Yeah.
Well, let's open it up. Why don't you start thinking about what it is that you might want to talk about? You see there are two microphones. There's one here and there's one here. And then we'll take as many questions as we can. I'll give you a chance we'll talk a little bit more up here and give you a chance to come up to the mics, and we'll talk a little bit more as long as we can. And also I want to mention that there's a book signing after this from 12 to 1, I believe, wherever it is that they're doing book signings. I think that's on the first floor. And can I ask you about while folks are getting ready to ask their questions, what is your take on the whole the whole question of Black Lives Matter and the way that a lot of young folks these days are engaging with, not just young people, but mainly they're kind of at the front of this, engaging with law enforcement right now. Many of them are saying that they're kind of tired of the traditional approaches that people in our generation have used to, our generations have used to engage on these questions, like, protest and things of that sort. They're saying, they've had it with that. They don't feel like we're making enough progress. And I just wondered if you have thoughts about that.
No, I'm not, because I don't know. I don't understand what they're saying. I say Black Lives Matter, of course. That's what else there to say? But Black Lives Matter. I don't know what those kids, the youth you're talking about, are saying. I don't know how they're going to protest. I don't know what they're talking about. Anything they're talking about. I think you had a question, sir.
Yeah. Sure.
Hi, my name is Fraser O'Leary, and I just retired from teaching at Cardozo High School here in the district. And Mr. Gaines came to my class in 1993 to talk to my students as part of the Penn Faulkner Writers in Schools program. I don't know if he remembers. I know the students do. And I don't have a question, I just have a comment that I've been teaching a lesson before dying since 1993 to my students at Cardozo, and it's always had an incredible impact on their lives. And I just wanted to thank you so much for honoring us with your visit back in 1993.
And where is this?
At Cardozo High School here in D.C.
Oh, yeah.
You came to the class.
Okay.
And the students got the book before it was even in the book stands, the hardback copy. I still have mine. You have to sign it today. But I just wanted to thank you for all of our students for making such an impression on their lives.
Thank you very
so
much, sir.
Yeah, thank you for that. There's some questions coming up here. You can come here. There's a lady here who has a question.
Actually, it's not a question. I just wanted to let Mr. Gaines know that my book club, the African American Book Discussion Group of Rockville Memorial Library, read his book discussed his book on October 16th, 2014. There were about 15 of us. Everybody loved the book. The biggest argument was whether or not the teacher was the one that got the lesson as opposed to the person he was supposed to be teaching. And some of us argued that he did teach the doomed boy something, and the rest of us said no, it was the teacher who got the lesson.
Oh, and, well, both.
Both, okay. Thank you.
The teacher, until he got Jefferson to realize that he was a human being, was running in place. He wasn't really teaching until he reached Jefferson, and then Jefferson is a prisoner, and then he realized that now I am, he was surprised that he had taught anything because he hated teaching. But visiting Jefferson in jail over and over and over and over, and he saw this person who thought he was the animal as described by a lawyer, changing from that kind of person to a human being. He realized that by doing that to Jefferson had helped him. By helping Jefferson had helped him.
Thank you.
Right there.
And here.
Thank you. Mr. Gaines, do you have a favorite of your books?
Do I have a favorite book?
Yeah, a favorite of your own books. Which one would you recommend to
Oh,
us?
I don't have a favorite book. I have a favorite short story
Okay.
of
what's that?
mine, and that is Christ Walked Down Market Street. I don't have a favorite novel, though. And I just, Christ Walked Down Market Street is my favorite story. And it's the oldest story that I've written about California. Everything else has been written about, I've written as a Louisiana background. But one story, Christ Walked Down Market Street is my favorite short story that I've
Thank
done.
you.
I could say one thing more about that story. It is a man who meets Christ twice and never recognizes it, that he has done so each time. He always recognizes him after they are separated, but he meets him twice, and that's what my story about.
Dr. Gaines, in reading your books, one character that I see represented strongly is a teacher in each case. And I'd like to hear you talk about your experience with teachers that brought them into a prominent role in your writing.
Although I have to say, in this book, the character is a journalist, and we're very happy about that. So.
And I will be reading that one next. So.
What role does teachers play in my life? Well, that's why I guess why I'm here today is because of teachers in my life who taught me writing and taught me everything. Other than your home, I think a teacher is the next greatest influence on a student, especially young people. So that's why there's always somebody's teaching somebody. In my books, I suppose. I never.
Sir?
Yes. Dr. Gaines, my mother was from Pointe, Coupee, and she moved to New Orleans for high school. Then we lived in the St. Bernard projects until 7 and moved to Los Angeles. Before moving to Los Angeles, my whole world in that area was black and Catholic. Going to Los Angeles in South Central, the Catholic school became more than black, and all the religions in my area, being mostly black, were other than Catholic. And it gave me a whole new take on the world. That's two things. One, what's special about Pointe Coupee I've never visited in your background, and what events gave you a broader prospect of the world other than in that area?
So what is special about Pointe Coupee?
Pointe Coupee, and then what leaving there gave you a more world view just about people in general?
Well, I've lived my first 15 years of my life was spent in Pointe Coupee. 5 generations of my people lived there from slavery to, and I still have people in Pointe Coupee Parish. So it is my home. It is my home. It's much more than my home than any other place, any other part of the state, or either part of the country. The church, well, after we moved after we bought a piece of property on that plantation, my wife and I, we moved a little church from the quarter to our property. And so to hang on to our history, I went to this little church as a child, and I was taught there for my first 6 years, 6th grade, 6, 7, yeah, sixth grade, yes, as a child in that little church. So that is my entire world. Pointe Coupee, the parish of Pointe Coupee, yes, Pointe Coupee parish.
Thank you.
Hi. Dr. Gaines, I grew up in Louisiana, and there's a part of one of your books that really changed my view of things of Louisiana, a particular part of it in my father's house. I'm just curious, and I know that I've heard you've been asked a couple of political questions. It doesn't seem to be your primary interest, but I'm curious if you think in Louisiana right now, when we look at Mitch Landrieu in New Orleans taking the monuments down, those kind of actions, do you think anything's changing deeply in Louisiana toward a view of rethinking the past that you're speaking of from the point of view of really taking an honest look at that past?
I never did notice those statues. I never did see them. I went by them. They had no effect on me at all. And I think it's taking them down now. Not that I'm against taking them down, but what's happening now is really separating people much more than say when they stood there. I never did. I don't think my younger, my siblings or my older people thought much of those statues. They just didn't think about it. But it's a contemporary feeling by the young people, and as Jefferson once said, that every generation, things should change every generation. I mean, every 20 years. And they have the right to complain about this. But personally, I haven't been affected by the statues or them being there or not being there. I just.
Right. Thank you.
But I know it's happening since they start taking them down. You can feel this tension now that's going between races there in my area.
Thank you.
Dr. Gaines, I know when the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman was published that you had been asked whether it was fiction or whether it was real, and you were saying that people were confused. And you came and said, no, I did not interview people for this. These people were my creations. I want to report to you an odd occurrence that I had when teaching at a middle school in Frederick many years ago, that the social studies teacher there was one of the many confused people you had heard about, and she presented the novel to her students as a real piece of primary evidence, and didn't realize that it was fiction. In fact, the students themselves kind of wondered and looked it up and caught on that in fact it was fiction, and when they spoke to her about it, she was very irate and denied it. I came to know of it, and she told them, how dare you question me? So some of those students came to me for confirmation, and I said, well, yes, it's fiction, but what is, and then they told me what was going on. At the end of the day, I just had lunch with her very quietly one time and said that, really it was a work of fiction, and, you should probably think of something you should say to your students. But I wonder, how do you react to such a thing going on, fiction and reality, and how the two of them?
Well, when that book came out, a lot of people thought it was a real person. And Ruby Dee, the actress, wrote in, I think, Black World, that reviewed the book for Black World, and she reviewed it as a real person, and several others did the same. I think it was CBS, one of the national radio stations, called me on the phone and they wanted a picture of Mrs. Jane. And I said, you know, so I explained that she was not, she's just a creation, my imagination. But we've had that since the beginning. I just said, I didn't know it could create a character that's so, it could be so real, you know, that people would think that she was actually based on a live person, but she was not. I've never known one Miss Jane. I've never in my life known one Miss Jane, but I've known 1,000 Miss Jane. See, this is no one but 1,000 of them. Because every time I see a little old lady walking down the street, that's Miss Jane, you know, so that's Miss Jane to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Gaines. I was one of your students at the University of Louisiana, Lafayette, and one of your neighbors. I'm Risa Gorlick, and I just want to thank you. I know that you inspired me and the cohort of graduate students who were in Louisiana in the 90s to be passionate about teaching and about our students. And my question to you is about your wife Diane's work and how it's influenced you to look at the populations that you've looked at with the prison system.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
She was asking about your wife, Diane, and
Yes.
if her work has influenced you in some way. And she also, of course, wanted to thank you as an inspiring teacher. And she was one of your students.
Yeah, right, yeah. I heard that part. But
And we're going to have time for one more question after this, sir. I think you have a question. We're going to have time for one more question after this answer.
I don't know how my wife would influence me in any way in the writing. She likes my writing. That's enough. Thank you.
Sir.
Good morning, Dr. Gaines. You spoke earlier about the fear of the youth going to Angola. I wanted to know if you can describe the impact of Angola on the community that you grew up in as a child.
Well, I've seen people who've gone to Angola and broken, I mean, physically and mentally broken. And I've seen people who've come back from Angola who were more mean, or more worse than they were before they went in. I've seen people broken down and then made more of a monster by going to Angola. But the old people were just against, those are the ones who came back. Many of them never did come back. They were sentenced there for a longer period of time and they died there. But those who stayed, I'd say 5 years or they were broken. They were broken one way or another. Made more cruel toward their own people or to anybody, or really become nothing like but a helpless creature. You ever seen that?
Before we let you go, and we're so thankful that you are here. We are thankful for your work. I was asked to say that, again, there's a book signing from 12 to 1. It's where all the book signings are. I think it's on the first floor. When you exit, if you could use that door, the one that's closest to the stage where we are now, it would help the folks who are managing this room. Dr. Gaines, one more question for you from me. A lot of people, let me just put it this way, are wondering about what they should be doing right now. You spoke of meanness. Many have observed that we are in a mean moment, that a lot of our public discourse is mean, a lot of our politics is mean. And I'd wondered if you have some thoughts about how you would wish us to meet this moment. I know we all have our work. Your work is as a writer. A lot of us do different work. Do you have thoughts about what people should do right now in the current moment when you've lived through mean moments before?
You know, those questions have been asked since the beginning of time. What should people do? And what can people do but try to, get along with other person, the person around him or around her. I have no answer to that. I can't answer that question. I just,
Do you? You do your thing.
I'm sorry?
You do your thing.
You do your thing. You just try to live the best you can with the people around you. I cannot tell you how to live. I will not try to tell anyone how to live. I don't know because I don't know exactly. Mm-hmm. I know how I live, but I cannot tell you to live the way I do.
Well, thank you for this book. Do you have another one in you? You said you got up one morning and just started writing. You got another one? You going to get up tomorrow? You got another one for us?
I have. I had intended to write. This is a novella, really, and rather than a full novel. And I, in the beginning, I wanted to write 2 novellas to make it a hardback book, But this is this small book is. So that's the next project I have, and I will go back home and start back over it again. It's about the same length as this one. The title is Daughters of the Creole Lady, and I've been playing with that for a long, long time. That title and that subject for a long time. So that is my next project, and I hope that I can get it done this time, because I really wanted it to be published at the same time as this one, to make it a hardback.
Okay.
Well,
we like this one.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ernest Gaines, his latest book is The Tragedy of Brady Sims. Thank you both. Thank you so much for being here. Okay.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.